Welcome back, creepers.
Welcome, welcome.
So we took a little time off um, at my birthday,
4th of July.
4th of July, had some fireworks, 250 years old. Wow.
Yeah, 250 years old. I feel that way.
Yeah, right. So today we've got an old timey true crime case that is still technically not solved.
So, yeah,
I mean, it's still unsolved.
unsolved. Do.
And it happened right here in the good old Virginia. So picture it, broad daylight, June 14th, 1895, Lunenburg County, Virginia. Lucy Jane Pollard is outside her home where she gets brutally murdered with an axe.
Meat
A
at
meat
that.
axe. Take that in. A meat axe.
Mm.
Broad daylight, brutally murdered. Cool. Within 4 days, the constable has arrested four suspects, three women and a man, all of which are African American. And what's worse, by July 20th, 1895, they have all four been convicted of murder in the first degree. So it's 1882. At the age of 44, Lucy Jane Folks wed Edward Pollard, who was 60. By 1895, Edward Pollard was 73, and by all reports, he was very cantankerous. He was constantly involved in property disputes with his neighbors over property as well as right of way. It also appears as if Edward was a moneylender. It seems that he was reportedly well known all over Lunenburg County for having large sums of cash all over his house. By the afternoon of June 14th, 1895, upon his return from the field, Edward found his wife's body just outside the back door to their home, lying on the ground. Her head had been gashed by several blows from a meat axe that the Pollards kept outside of their home. The apparent motive was robbery, as more than $800 in that time, which would be about $31,448.86 in today's money, was missing from the home, as well as reportedly some of Lucy's dresses and bedding. So the constable, the justice of the peace, and a private citizen by the name of Cass Gregory. A name like Cass Gregory, I don't know what else you're going to do, but okay. They began the investigation. So this group interviewed farmhands and the neighbors well into the night. One of the first people that they interviewed was Mary Abernathy. She was a tenant of the Pollards and a black farmhand. She was the last to see Lucy alive. 24 hours after Lucy's murder, Mary was arrested. Pokey Barnes, also a black neighbor of the Pollards, was seen near the Pollards' house that day, and so she was also arrested by the end of the second day after the murder. Of note, Pokey's mother, Mary Barnes, was also arrested for this murder, in addition to three other women. So the final suspect was a black sawmill hand who went by the name Solomon, and his real name was William Henry Marable. So not too far from our murder scene in Chase City, Virginia, on Tuesday, June 18th, 1895, Solomon was arrested on suspicion of murder, all because he paid for his 50-cent breakfast tab with a $20 bill, which would be the equivalent of $786.22 in today's money. Wow, slight overkill.
Yeah.
So the waitress noticed that he had another 20 on it, and she reported it to the authorities, which led to his arrest. Solomon Marable claimed that he saw Mary and Pokey Barnes and Mary Abernathy the day of Lucy's murder, and that they told him they, quote unquote, had something good in store. And he further stated that he saw Pokey Barnes and Mary Abernathy with their hands and clothes covered in blood. He also said he saw Mary Abernathy and she gave him $20 and told him to say nothing about it. He didn't learn about the murder until the next day, is what he said first. Remember that. So the three women that Solomon named, Mary and Pokey Barnes and Mary Abernathy, were referred to as the Lunenburg women, were held while the remaining women were released. So this was during the time of lynching, and this is a very real threat of a lynching. The prisoners were transported a 3 days journey to Petersburg. So on July 11th, 1895, the prisoners returned to Lunenburg jail. They were escorted by two companies of the Virginia State Militia, who stayed until all four were tried in order to keep the order of the village of Lunenburg. The trials were in rapid succession, with Solomon's being on July 13th, 1895. But Virginia didn't have public defenders at this time. And when the judge tried to get them an attorney, nobody wanted to be their attorney. Nobody wanted to defend them. And so
You sat alone.
on that
Defend
day,
yourself.
yep, he sat alone on his day in court, acting on his own behalf. And Solomon Marable was not the smartest man. So the case against Solomon was circumstantial. But what placed the proverbial nail in the coffin was Solomon said on stand that he held Mrs. Pollard's hands while Pokey Barnes hit her with a stick and Mary Abernathy hit her with the axe.
So we brought another weapon.
There's another one.
Okay.
So the jury deliberated for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. 9. To return with guilty of murder in the first degree. The Lunenburg women were also tried without counsel, without legal knowledge. They quite literally had to throw themselves at the mercy of the court. The only one that was able to mount any type of defense or provide any kind of believable alibi was Pokey Barnes. However, it didn't really help because all three women were found guilty of murder in the second degree and sentenced to hang or 10 years in the penitentiary. Solomon Marable testified in every trial, but his story changed every time he told it. Every time. So originally, remember, he claimed that he had no knowledge of the murder. Okay. But then at his own trial, he claimed direct involvement. He held her hand. Then at Mary Abernathy's trial, he claimed that she had told him a week before the murder and that all three women were planning to go and kill Miss Pollard. And then at Pokey Barnes' trial, he spun a different story. So this new story is where he claims that a white man forced him at gunpoint to help him kill Ms. Pollard. He further claimed that that man asked him if he knew of any women in the area. And he said Pokey Barnes, and Mary Abernathy. And then Solomon said that the white man told him that he wanted to blame them for the murder. 4 different stories now that he's told. So now when Solomon's story was challenged by the prosecution, Solomon Marable sat silent for about 10 minutes before he said, quote unquote, Mary Abernathy got possession of the money. He had $40. She didn't have anything. Remember that. So naturally, the case became famous around Virginia as the Richmond press followed it closely. And of course, all those militiamen are regaling others with their stories of Solomon's continuously changing testimony at this point. So this is the point that John Mitchell Jr., who's a prominent Richmond editor, took up the cause of the Lunenburg women via the Richmond Planet. So the Richmond Planet, with the assistance of contributions from their readers and citizens and civic groups, both black and white, and from all over Virginia, he was able to mount an appeal on behalf of Solomon Marable and the Lunenburg women. They were able to hire an impressive team of lawyers, which was led by former Congressman George Douglas Wythe. The Richmond Times was a mainstream daily newspaper at the time, and it also took up the cause, reporting these women, quote unquote, have had no trial, and if they are to be judicially murdered under the present program, the life of none of us is safe. Which, hey, no argument there because they really didn't. couldn't defend themselves. Wow. So the Richmond Dispatch, though, they took up the opposite point of view and were dangerously close to advocating for the lynching of the prisoners to protect family and property. But of course, the Lunenburg citizens took the appeal as a personal insult. They were appalled that a trial held in their county could be seen as unfair or unjust. I mean, I can get that, saying that they're not being fair. And so when the first two trials reached the same verdict as before, and the trial of Pokey Barnes was looking the same, Prince Edward prosecutor Asa Watkins spoke for the first time, saying, quote unquote, "And now that all the evidence in the possession of the Commonwealth has been given in, I cannot believe that it is sufficient to justify the jury bringing in a verdict of guilty. I have reached this conclusion without consultation of any." He then filed a nolle prosequi motion, effectively dropping the charge. The motion was allowed, and because of this, Pokey was released. Uh, with this, Mary Abernathy's new verdict was appealed, and the appeal was succeeded, giving Mary Abernathy a new trial. But this time, the Commonwealth's attorney dropped the charges, and Mary Abernathy was set free. Mary Bonds got pardoned by Governor Charles Tripp O'Farrell, who said, quote unquote, "The life or liberty of a citizen, however humble, is too sacred in the eyes of civilized man to be taken upon the testimony alone of a self-convicted perjurer and murderer. Every mandate of justice and dictate of conscience require that the prisoner be returned to her liberty." She was free. And then on July 3rd, 1896, Solomon Marable was hanged inside Prince Edward Jail on that morning. The dresses, the money was never recovered. And then I was doing a little reading to kind of get more into, because Lucy gets locked up.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't
It's
even
no longer about Lucy
no, they start
anymore.
talking about Solomon and the Lunenburg 3, and Lucy doesn't get, neither does Edward. Edward doesn't get talked about either.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
let's take in a little peek at this little stuff. Take a little look about Edward. So reasonable doubt. Was it Edward Pollard? Could he have murdered his wife?
Who would have backed him?
So, according to Austin Clement's son, his son Willie, who was helping, let me tell you this story and you'll hear a little bit about it. Quote unquote, "Father and I drove through the gate and turning to the left went over to the cornhouse while Mr. Pollard walked over to the front porch and washed his hands. He then came over to the cornhouse and he said he called his wife twice, but I did not hear this. We then began to measure out the corn, Mr. Pollard standing in the door of the cornhouse. When we had finished measuring the corn, Father and Mr. Pollard went over to the house and were there on the porch 3 or 4 minutes. I think they were fixing a paper. Then Father came out and we started to go home. I think Mr. Pollard went back into the house. I drove the wagon and Father walked on about 40 or 50 feet behind to see that the corn did not spill. Some time after we got home, a messenger came for Father saying that Mrs. Pollard had been killed. Father then said that just as we got to the big gate, he heard a bell ringing, but that he thought it was Mr. Pollard calling to get up the house. I did not hear the bell ring, nor did I hear anyone shouting. I reckon it took us 10 minutes to get to the big gate." So,
I mean,
so
why? That's my question is why?
I, all right. Well, Edward was a climber. Let's talk about it. So William M. or Billy Justice, he specialized in evidence. And from his first step onto the Pollard's property, it's like he knew justice was far from served. And what the name, let's go back to this man's last name was Justice.
Justice. Yeah.
What? just poetic. I just,
Yeah.
with a name like Justice, what were you gonna do? You know. So with the earlier excerpt that I just read y'all from Willie Clement's statement on the murder, like us, Justice said, I need more information. This isn't
Mhm.
right. So he asked Willie if from his vantage point in the wagon, he would have had a clear view of Miss Pollard's body if it was like laying on the ground from when he went into the gate, if he'd have seen her on the left side. He said, "Yes, sir. When we went in the gate, we could see all the left side of the yard, but we weren't noticing that way." So here's where the author in the book that I was reading, she asked the same question I posed to you. You didn't notice, or was there nothing to notice?
Mm.
I don't think there was anything to notice at that point. I think Lucy was still alive. I mean, William Justice printed it through the Richmond Times 3 long investigative reports. He argued in those reports that Edward Pollard could not possibly have missed seeing Lucy's body. But even if he did, there is no possible way that Austin and Willie Clements would have
Yeah.
not seen her. There's no way. They were seated 4 or 5 feet up on the wagon. They had a better vantage point than he did on the ground. So they would have seen her up at that big gate. But yeah, they're seated 4 or 5 feet up in the wagon. They would have seen her from their vantage point. So therefore, Lucy Pollard would have still had to have been alive. And that means that she died later than they originally believed, which means Edward could have had enough time in that 10-minute span to murder his wife.
What if he had hit her with the axe? She faints, you know, bleeding or whatever, gasping for air, and he just kind of moved her towards the house. And then he did his business with the Clement, and then he went back and finished the job.
I don't know. I don't know because where she was laying, there was blood. You'd have seen it.
But if he finished it, I don't know. I'm kind of what if he had started it and that's why he was on the porch washing his hands,
Possible.
to wipe the
It
evidence
just seems to me,
off?
why would you wash your hands? I don't understand. Why would you need to wash your hands to let it
Maybe
drain?
he saw them coming and he didn't want them to notice his hands had blood on
Okay, but now if Edward did kill Lucy, why?
them.
I mean, by all accounts, they weren't hurting for money. He had $800 in his house that went missing.
Yeah, but this
supposedly.
was third wife.
I mean, he had cash laying around.
Third wife.
That's where it gets. But here's the real rub. So they wrote of Edward, Mary's, Solomon, even wrote about Solomon's wife in the newspapers. Nobody wrote anything about the victim. Nothing is written on Lucy Pollard. It is almost impossible to find anything on Lucy Pollard
Except
herself,
for she was
except for
murdered
that she was
at her
murdered.
house with the meat axe.
So let's dig into her a little bit. She was born in 1838. It's unknown if she would have known anything about Edward when she was a young girl because she grew up in Nottoway, which borders Lunenburg on the north. So, I mean, it's possible, but
He
we don't
was
know.
older, and if
Right.
he was well in money
Mm.
or
She was higher socially than he was.
yeah, I just think that maybe families have crossed because, you go to church, you do things
I think
in a
maybe.
maybe once or twice, maybe they've crossed. I mean,
I think they
what
had
if
to
he
have.
was friends with her father?
I don't know. Her father, though, his name was Liberty B. Folks. Liberty.
Liberty.
They named that man Liberty. I'm here for it.
I
I'm
mean,
here
it's
for it.
kind of cool.
So Lucy was the daughter to Liberty B. Folks and Harriet Bruce of Lunenburg. Lucy Jane was the youngest of 5 children. Sadly, before her 10th birthday, she would lose her mother, Liberty. He was widowed in his 40s, so he remarried Sarah Ellington, who was 22
Back then,
and was
though.
only 2 years older than his oldest daughter. Oh, it
Oh,
it
God.
gets better. It gets better. At this point, they populated the county by themselves. From 1849 to 1866, 17 years, Sarah birthed 12 children.
Oh,
12. 12. On top of the 5 he already this man has 17 kids.
I can't say nothing. Back in the day, that's how they were. We won't talk about my family.
We're gonna take a minute for that, though. That's 12 kids in 17
17.
years. You figure you got roughly a year of pregnancy. For almost 20 years, this woman was pregnant the entire time.
I mean,
I did 3.
I just think
I did
that
3
back in the
in 3
day,
years.
yeah, but back in the day, you wanted to populate for help on the farm and things like that.
Yeah,
They
but
didn't populate because they loved children. They populated because there was
there's
nothing
nothing
else
else
to
to
do.
do. There's nothing else to do, so let's fornicate.
12 kids in 17 years, though, is, whoo, her
Yeah.
body didn't have a good of rest.
So before the Civil War, Liberty flourished. He drove an expensive carriage, he owned 1,000 acres and 23 slaves. But the war put it put a hurt on him. It hit him hard, and for unclear reasons, he fell harder and faster than most men of his class. And upon his death in 1875, he only had 100 acres to support Sarah and the 11 children who remained at home. The oldest of whom was Lucy, still single, and by this time, considered a spinster, unmarried in her late 30s. Not much about her life is recorded. She's only mentioned 3 times in census records, with the third being her marriage to Pollard. So she really did get lost in the sauce. That's like all the information that could be found on her. That's wild.
That is crazy that she's not mentioned.
The
But
only thing she will ever be known for is the woman who was
Mary,
murdered with an axe.
yeah, Marion Pollard.
Yeah.
And,
So remember how I told you Pollard was a social climber?
mhm.
So he was born in 1822 in Nottoway County. Tobacco was king. The blacks outnumbered whites 3-2. Uh, the Pollards, like most whites in the area, owned no slaves. That fact, most of Edward's childhood, they didn't even own land. They had nothing. So when Edward was 16, his father put in down payment on a small farm. Because Edward was strong and a hard worker to boot, that gave Pollard the leg up, so to speak, to advance socially into land ownership. Unfortunately for Edward, though, his father had already decreed that the land that he owned would be divided equally amongst his children, which would only leave Edward with a few acres. So at 22, he becomes a peddler, working a circuit of farm to farm throughout South side of Virginia. This by no means was a prestigious occupation. It was a great way to meet women, which
Strong
he did.
worker.
He did. He met women, and in 1848, he met and married Frances W. Thompson. Edward was 26, and Frances was at least 50.
55 up.
I thought it
Okay.
he was Kruger.
Yeah, big time.
She was a cougar before it became a cougar. That was
Oh,
wild.
jeez.
Yeah. So, 2 years later, it was reported to a census taker that Frances was 40. Hmm. That's common.
Can we age
And,
backwards?
you know, they did that in the 1800s, though.
I mean, could
The
we?
poor record keeping, nobody really paid attention to it, so they would make themselves
Dang my
younger,
driver's
right?
license.
So they would adjust their age however the wind struck them. But Frances had adult children, at least 3 of them, plus 2 children that were still in their teens, one of which is known to have grown up hating it.
Mm,
They had some mad tension. He called him the other Tom.
okay.
Just
Wonder
just
how
saying.
close in age they were.
I don't know. Okay, so again, this is the 1800s of it all. So the farm that Francis Thompson owned, they got married. It's now Pollard. Um, but he wasn't his outright. He goes for kids,
Mm,
so he gets nothing if something happens to her. Kids get it first. But he could still profit from them while she's still alive and work his way up. He can cultivate it. He doesn't have to pay rent. And because he's owns young slaves, he doesn't have to pay them wages. He can get them to work for him. So he's making money hand over fist at this point.
mm.
He's being smart about it.
Yep.
Then, before long, he's able to buy his own land. 2 more tracts that he controlled. He had all control over it. Nobody else. They're just his. By the 1860s, since his real estate holdings were valued at $16,040, which today's money is $66,217.13. Whereas his personal property, which was mostly slaves, was 4,000, which today's money would be $161,505.06. So the Pollards fared far better than the Folk with the Civil War.
Mhm.
It didn't affect, but this is due in part to Lunenburg's lack of railroads and their lack of industry. Because there was no strategic value for the Yankees, the area saw very little fighting. But in 1861, Edward decided, almost 40, he enlisted as a private in the Confederate Army and served the Confederacy as a courier for 1 whole week
Hmm.
before an exception came through. By January 1862, he was home for good.
1 whole week.
1 whole week.
1 whole week of being military.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
So little is recorded on how Pollard and his slaves fared after the war, like how they transitioned from slaves to freed. We don't know. But Edward owned way more land than he could work himself, and he rented some out, patched together labor that he could afford, which to him meant hiring young boys as young as 8 to 10 years old to work his field. Again, labor laws. Women worked for half,
Oh,
half,
at least we
half,
got paid.
half of what men made. Men were paid, if men were paid a dollar, women got 50
50
cents.
cents.
Now, nothing's
Hmm.
changed. Nothing's changed.
Ah,
Very similar. Um, so Edward kept up traditions when he hired Mary Barnes years later for her labor with cheap because
mhm.
she was a woman, he could afford it. That's how nothing. He's right. So spring of 1873 found Edward a widower when Frances passed away, causes not recorded.
Mm.
8 weeks later, 8 weeks later, 2
2
months,
months.
2
2
months, 2
months.
months, 2 months, 2 months. Your wife died. 2 months later, you're walking down the aisle with your sister-in-law.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes. 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 8 weeks later, 50-year-old Edward marries Betsy Lewis. He much younger, never been married, according to the marriage register. Never before married, younger sister to Frances. The woman he just buried 8 weeks ago.
Prior.
Yeah. So the marriage register said that Betsy was 40. She was actually 63.
Holy moly. We just lying like that. You know what? I'm just letting y'all know I'm now 21.
I
I'm
wish
just
it was
saying,
like
can I
that.
grab that?
So good thing for Edward, Betsy had land because, the rights to the land that Frances owned, yeah, they died when she did.
He was gonna get that land no
Yeah.
matter what.
So he had also bought land in the Depression of 1870s. He got him 200 acres, 16 of which he gave to a carpenter to build him a house with a big room, a little room, a long front porch, and a steep roof. Right?
Okay.
So it was just before Christmas of 1878. Edward and Betsy moved in. This was their home until Betsy's death of causes not reported, number 2,
Doo.
in 1882, when Betsy was had less than 8 weeks later.
2 months.
He has a pattern. His
Yeah.
pattern. He says
2 months.
he met and married Lucy Jane Pollard. The marriage register said she was 38. She was really 44. Why are we lying?
Why we lying
Why
like
can't be truthful? Come on, y'all.
ah, I don't know. That's crazy.
So with this marriage to Lucy, Edward moves up in social status because she was from a planter family, so she had higher social status.
Mhm.
And
We climbing.
even better for him, unlike Frances and Betsy, his first 2 wives, Lucy can read and write. So it's believed that she had a hand in him renting the property and rent
Mhm.
or lending
Like
money and stuff.
mhm.
Like she wrote
Keeping
up.
the tracks
We're
and
wondering if she wrote,
books,
like, yeah, if she kept the
keeping books.
papers and stuff because she was good at all that. Now, remember I told you about that other that stepson, the one he didn't like from his first wife, Frances, which Edward called him one of quote unquote those Thompsons. And he had told that to Mary Abernathy, "You needn't want to know them." Why did he hate him so bad? You know? It just I don't
I think it's the age thing. I think it was the
know.
age thing. Maybe
I
intimidation.
I'm wondering. It could be put myself in a place there. When my parents separated, I didn't like my stepmother because she wasn't my mom.
Your mom.
Okay. And I'm wondering if maybe it started like that. Like, I don't like you because you're not dad. But then when his mom died and he went and married his aunt,
You're gone.
I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe
I
maybe he's like, "Oh, you just gonna take anybody as wife."
I don't know. I'm still at the age thing. Maybe he felt intimidated. If Pollard was only say, this son could just say adult children.
Mhm.
So if this adult child was say 20
Well, we know that she did It did say that there was 3 adult children and 2 teenagers,
Mhm.
one of which would grow up to hate him.
Well, I mean, even then, teenage years, impressionable years. We all know that, been there, done that.
And we know how
Um,
rebellious teenagers can be too,
yeah.
so
So my thing is I mean, even let's say that this son was 16 and Pollard was 30. I mean, that's only a 14-year
yeah,
age
you're
gap,
right.
and you're going from 30 to 60, to marry
Oh
somebody.
my
That's a
gosh.
big. Maybe he was intimidated thinking that he was gonna get, if his mom shall pass, that he was gonna get what was rightfully theirs. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that you could do, but
It really me I
2
just
months,
I keep coming back to that. I'm like, 3 wives.
3
You were
wives.
married for a long time, bro.
Mhm.
Long time. Because he and Frances were together for a while before she died. How long were they? Uh, 16 when he finally became a landowner at 16. That's that tells me they were really hard on life.
Uh, I don't know. I still think that
'Cause it was easier to buy a house and stuff back then than it is now.
nobody looked at Pollard for Lucy's
Mm-mm.
death, and there was money missing. I think if we wanna do double-edged sword, I think that he took that money and he killed his wife, and he took the money and the dresses or whatever for his next wife, or the next woman that was gonna be
Right.
the wife,
Well,
or
or what if there was no money for dress I mean, what if there was no dressing dresses or linens then?
yeah, 'cause they had to go
Because
on
he didn't
his word.
right. He wouldn't know. Men didn't know what women had back then, so he
Exactly.
wouldn't have known, and who what man, even today,
Can
nowadays,
go in there and tell me how many
you
dresses I
my husband is not gonna be able to look in my linen closet and tell you if we have any sheets missing.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, and he is not gonna look in my closet and say, "Oh, yes, this dress is missing." No, he is
Yeah,
not gonna know.
no.
He's gonna be like, "I have no idea."
I think that I seriously think that he had because they did I think he bought his way out,
Mhm.
basically. I think that the money that was missing in the house that he reported missing, I think that he bought something else. He bought
I'm wondering
somebody somebody's innocence.
I'm wondering, I truly, truly am wondering if because we know Solomon Marable was hanged. And there is little doubt whether he had anything to do with the murder. They know he had something to do with it. He was there. He was known to frequent the area. He was known to the area. He hung out behind their house. There was like a
But
little swamp wooded area behind their house.
you see movies all the time
So
where somebody sees something,
right.
they jump, something takes place, he saw it maybe, and
I
Pollard
think
gave
yeah.
him money and
And that's what
said,
I'm
"I
saying.
need you to be quiet."
I'm thinking that's what I'm saying. He was known to hang out there. So whether he took part in it, saw it, he had something. We know that much.
I still think
There's something in there, whether he saw it, he
physically,
took
I don't
part in
think
it.
that he did it.
I I don't
I
know.
physically don't think he did it.
I think he's an accomplice after the fact because I think from the little evidence and the little dot that I did, I
If I had to pick
I'm going
something,
back,
I would say
you know,
Edward did it.
the husband.
Yeah.
Because the husband always did. I mean,
I
we're
but I think
conditioned
that
to believe that.
he did it, and Solomon
I think he
maybe
gave
saw
I
the
think he saw it,
body.
and that's why he got that $40.
I think
I think he was given that $40
for hush money.
for hush money, and I think he was told to go on get someone.
Yeah, and I think that let's really sit down and think about this. How much education would an African man have back in the day? So reading, writing, arithmetic, as it says, I don't think that smart wise, and I hate to sound like that, but I don't think smart wise that if he had something to do with it, that he would come up with four different ways of this woman dying.
And at the end of the day, and it all happens the same basically. I mean,
Yeah.
she gets hit over the head with the stick. She gets hit with the axe. He says she gets hit. He saw. That's why I think he saw it because he does say she dies the same way every time,
Yeah.
whether he's holding her hands or or not. But she does. She
I
does end her life the same way every time. That stays consistent.
I don't think that he had anything to do
I
with
think he
it.
saw
I
it.
think he may have saw
I
it,
think
and
he
I
saw
think
it.
that he was paid hush money, and I think
And
that
I think
that money was used as to buy people and
Mhm.
hit innocent. Um, I was in the field when she was killed.
Mhm.
I was in the field. So and so claimed that I was in the field.
Yep.
10 minutes of work in the field versus, whatever it took you
Right.
to kill your wife. And nobody like looked at him.
Mm-mm.
Like nobody looked at anybody else in the
Because
area.
and that's what made this book so hard to get through, and it's not just and let me tell you, I will link it in the show notes, and I strongly urge you to read it's very well written. It's
Mhm.
just the racist undertone because at the end of the day, it is 1895 in the South.
Race, race,
It
race.
is so hard to get through, and it's so much racism and oppression
Sexism.
and
Sexism.
sexism and oppression, just oppression in general. They're oppressing everybody. If you're different, they oppress you. And it's that's what's hard to get through because I just
Yeah, it's reading things like that, and especially knowing that this took place here in Virginia,
Mhm.
and this case is still not solved.
Right.
And I don't think, I
It
mean, in
ever
all
will be.
honesty, it will never be. But I think that, it was kind of pushed under the rug, and
Mhm.
I think that, it's just one of those who could have done it, who would have gained out of it,
So much.
and so, I mean, I don't think that he, Mr. Pollard, would have gained anything from it other than a new wife in 2 months, 'cause that's his
That's his MO.
that's his MO. I mean,
2 months, he'd
um,
have somebody
he
else.
would have
He
had a
may have. I
90-year-old.
don't
I mean, he was 70, he could have
he was
been hitting on
73.
90-year-old women. I mean, I don't know. But I don't think that again, I don't physically think that Solomon had anything to do with it. I think he was a basic innocent bystander, slave, whatever the case may be, and I think that, they needed to pin it on somebody, and they pinned it on an African American man
Yeah.
that maybe he wasn't so smart. Maybe he had, some type of disability. You never know because of the record keeping, and you'll never know, like
Exactly.
Lucy, you don't the
It's
victim
nothing
got
about him.
lost,
Mhm.
and so how fair is that to know that you were basically murdered in your yard and nobody wa was found guilty except for an innocent man that money was why did you work for
Exactly.
money? To better your family. So that
Exactly.
$40, that's
And he had a
$200.
wife and a child.
Yeah, like, it's just I think all of it's fishy. I think that if we put knowledge with ID channel and
Oh my
everything
gosh.
else, the husband did it.
I mean, but, we joke, but in all honesty, typically, law enforcement usually does look at the husband first. At least we do now.
I
Not
just
so much back then.
yeah, but I honestly think it was somebody was bought.
I
That
think so
money,
too.
that
That
over
was definitely hush
$800
money.
went to somebody for hush money, and it went to maybe it went to Solomon, the $40, for hush money, and, I mean, he goes out and buys breakfast and
Yeah.
pays with a $20 bill a 50-cent breakfast and another 20's notice.
It's just I mean, I still wanna go back to that though, the 50-cent breakfast meal. Now, remember I told you he had a wife and a child.
Mhm.
His wife and child were not with him when he was picked up.
We didn't live in
It's
1800s.
just
It's just what we can think about. I don't again, I honestly think in my gut of all guts
I don't
that
yeah, I
he
the
was innocent.
I think he was innocent.
I
He
don't
just got
think he physically put his hands
I think
on
he was in the wrong
Lucy.
place at the wrong time.
Exactly. I think this is a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. I think that, race was so crazy
Yes.
back then, that the first person walking down the street probably got one of those women were
Well,
walking somewhere and they got snatched up to say, "You're guilty of murder."
because Mary Abernathy was working in the fields with Mr. Pollard. He had
Mhm.
to call her when she had gone back out to the field when he had come back in they'd come back in together, and then she had gone back out to do something or another, and when he rang the bell to call for her, she had to run
From
back
the field,
from the field.
yeah.
She's like, "What the heck?" Again, there was time.
There was plenty of before, after, during, there's plenty of things. I mean, again, it's sad that this will
And
be unsolved, but
and again, part of the reason is because it's the 1895 of it all, and they had no crime scene technology, no
yeah.
idea that, "Oh, yeah, let me not let people walk all over the crime scene," "A
I
crime
wonder
happened
where her
here."
body is. Think her body is buried in Nottoway?
I think it's buried in Lunenburg.
I mean, Lunenburg?
I would think so.
Hmm,
That that's
maybe they should dig it up. We've had worse
we have
situations that have been solved, you know?
the next case I'm
Oh,
researching. I've already started researching it, and this next one, this is another old time not that old time, this is in our lifetime,
oh, okay, okay.
but it's been recently solved, like,
Oh, okay.
last year,
Hmm.
like, within the last year, recently been solved,
Oh,
and so
interesting.
I've been going down the rabbit hole on that one, but I
Wow.
this is one I've vividly this is mm, that ca this next
It'll
case
be for next time.
this next case is what got me on my true crime path.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you can come up with your
Oh,
own
yeah.
opinion on what you think. Read the book. It is a
I
good book.
definitely
Um,
recommend
A Murder in Virginia.
A Murder in Virginia by Suzanne Lepstock, Southern Justice on Trial. It is a really good book. It's it's oh my gosh, I cannot say enough good things about her as an author. Just
Well,
her writing is so good.
I did read that, she great. I think that,
Mhm.
she did get down to it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and again, it's honoring the victim and bringing it forth to let us, to let us know that this is what happened back in the day. How many this was because she was in a socialite, she
Mhm.
was depending on her wherever she fell in the socialite
It seemed
level.
like she was higher in social status than he was
But think
on
of
there.
all the ones that weren't
Yeah.
and went
And
unsolved.
and further, um,
And the 2 wives.
she looked kinda I don't know what the other 2 wives looked, but Lucy was a little, ferocious. She just
Yeah, she did kinda
she
look.
she that I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but she just let me tell you, if
Yeah,
she was a school teacher, she definitely took a
stern.
ruler to your
Yeah,
hand. She
yeah.
was a stern.
She did look very stern
Yeah.
in the pictures that they show of, Abernathy and things. Um,
She looked petite comparatively speaking.
yeah, I think that, uh, Abernathy was kinda stout and, more
Built
Voluptuous.
built like a brick, you know what.
Yeah, she was kind of on the bigger side, and the other ones, Pokey and things, they were smaller. I don't think that 3 women would have been needed.
No.
And I 2 women, I mean, if Abernathy did it by herself, I would believe it because of the build and things like that, but to hear no screams, to hear
So
nothing
that
is Pollard and
is
Lucy.
Pollard and Lucy Pollard and Edward Pollard. She had that taken on their after their wedding.
So,
She wanted
yeah,
that.
she just I don't know. Again, I seriously I would just like to say that I don't think that Solomon Marble had anything to do with it. I think wrong time,
Wrong place, wrong time.
wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
I think that, I wouldn't even be surprised if, maybe they'll go dig her up and maybe they'll do some DNA and see. I mean, you never
Never
know.
know.
Crazier mysteries have been solved because of DNA.
This is true. I mean,
So
like
I'd be interested
I would
in
be I would be I would
just to
be
see.
I'm very curious to find out.
Well, that might be one that we have to do something about. So
Maybe. We'll see.
we'll see.
Well, until the next adventure,
Keep
keep
creeping
keeping it
it
real.
real.